In Nebraska, a farmer has turned his 80-acre field into a massive political statement. He's crafted a gigantic corn art installation, a tribute to former President Donald Trump, complete with Trump's Fulton County mugshot and the motto, "Never surrender."
Corn farmer Ralph Gilkey spelled out Trump on this safflower field.
It's 1 mile wide and a half-mile tall.
Ralph has been working on the sign in support of presidential candidate Donald Trump for a couple of weeks. Ralph says in this economy, the farming community is struggling, but he holds on to hope that one day everything his family has worked for will be passed down for generations to come.
For farmers, have a lot of fun. I love you too. I love you too. It's all going to happen. New trade policy will also be great for the American farmer. I love the farmer. So somebody had to do it. I am the chosen one. Somebody had to do it. So I'm taking on China. I'm taking on China on trade. And you know what? We're winning because we're the piggy bank. We're the one that all these countries, including the European Union, wants to rob and takes advantage of. European Union, $200 billion. China, more than $500 billion. Sorry. I was put here by people.
You voted for the president?
Yes, I did.
And do you support these policies which might be hurting farmers like you?
Right now, we're the ones that are taking the hit.
I think he's sort of backstabbing the main people who got him into office in the Midwest, and he just left us down.
You ever sip your morning coffee, scroll the news, and just sit there baffled? Because that's me. Every time I see how some folks let pure hate drive their decisions, even when it means torching their own wallet just to make sure somebody else suffers a little more. And look, that's exactly why we do these MAGA FAFO videos on this channel. Because spite, my friends, is the most expensive drug in America. And nowhere is that clearer than with farmers who cheered for tariffs, swore off immigrants, and voted like loyalty was a business plan. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Instead, those choices wrecked their own industry. Billions lost in exports. Generations of family farms sold off to banks and corporate giants. Crops rotting in fields because the very workers they chased away were the ones keeping their farms alive. So grab your mug, top it off, because in this video, we're breaking down how MAGA farmers thought they were punishing China and protecting tradition, but what they actually did was bankrupt themselves, lose their markets, and watch their farmland slip right out of their hands. This, folks, is FAFO economics, served hot with just a splash of irony.
They have to give us magnets. If they don't give us magnets, then we have to charge them 200% tariff or something, you know. China intelligently went and they sort of took a monopoly of the world's magnet. To me, the most beautiful word, and I've said this for the last couple of weeks, in the dictionary today, and is the word tariff. It's more beautiful than love. It's more beautiful than anything. It's the most beautiful word. This country can become rich with the proper use of tariffs.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah.
All right. Let's start at the beginning of this FAFO farm saga, tariffs. You remember those, right? Trump's big, beautiful tariffs that were going to punish China and make America rich again. Spoiler, they punished farmers instead.
Everyone has some late breaking news. China now gets all its soybeans from Brazil because of Donald Trump's tariffs. So you got to think, how much money did the United States lose over this? How much taxable income did the United States lose? So now Brazil is China's #1 importer for these soybeans. They're getting it all from Brazil. So how do you think this is hurting the American people?
A report from the American Soybean Association says America's soybean farmers are nearing a financial cliff and won't survive another drawn-out trade war with China, one of the world's, of course, largest soybean buyers. Caleb Ragland, president of the American Soybean Association, sent a letter to the White House urging the administration to reach a deal with China to remove the duties and, if possible, to include significant soybean buys. He said, quote, U.S. soybean farmers can't survive a prolonged dispute with our largest customer. Soybean farmers are under extreme financial stress as prices drop and costs for inputs and equipment continue to climb.
But some folks who aren't feeling Trump's optimism right now are American farmers, and they are stuck in the middle of all of this.
Frank, who did you vote for president?
Mr. Trump.
Right?
Trump.
Mr. Trump.
If the election were today, Frank, would you vote for Donald Trump?
No way. Couldn't happen.
No.
You voted for President Trump. So now, in this moment, you say you're in a free fall. What is your message to him?
So I'm off the Trump train. Where I'm going for now is I got to protect my business.
A wheat farmer who says he's lost $400,000 since Trump took office.
I think there was a lot of people who voted for him that want to stay loyal to him, but it's going to get to the point where financially, if it's between supporting the president or losing your family farm.
You voted for the president?
Yes, I did.
And do you support these policies which might be hurting farmers like you?
Right now, we're the ones that are taking the hit.
I think he's sort of backstabbing the main people who got him into office in the Midwest, and he just left us down.
Here's how it went down. The U.S. launched tariffs on Chinese goods. China clapped back by slashing imports of American soybeans, corn, and pork, the lifeblood of rural economies across the Midwest. And guess what? They didn't just sit there waiting for MAGA loyalty to work its magic. They turned to Brazil and Argentina. Those markets are gone, maybe forever. Meanwhile, American farmers were left with silos full of unsold crops, grain prices tanking, and bills stacking up faster than their harvest.
Estimates show that China's retaliatory tariffs could cost American soybean farmers roughly $5.9 billion in lost revenue. How are you and other farmers reacting?
We're very concerned, Phil. We have a precedent from the trade war we went through about 7 years ago that was devastating to the American soybean farmer. Over that period of time, we lost nearly $20 billion of trade with China. Trade is 50% of the acres that are produced in the United States. And of that, currently 25% of our soybeans that we raise go to China.
By the end of 2018, U.S. soybean exports to China dropped by more than 70%. Billions gone, markets gone, and the world's biggest buyer turned to Brazil without looking back. But here's the part that gets me. Listen to how some farmers explained it themselves.
American workers and American taxpayers have been taken advantage of for multi-generation, for decades. And it's time for somebody to stand up and put us first and put the country first and do what's best for the country, not what's best for the politicians.
Even if you as a farmer suffer.
That's right.
I mean, some people would hear that and be quite surprised that you're prepared to put your livelihood, your family's livelihood, on the line for the sake of politics.
Well, that's my duty as for being the head of my household. I've got to do what I got to do, what's going to be better for the future, better for the kids. It's not about today, it's about the long term. The long game is where the rewards are going to be.
But don't the price of tariffs and what happens in commodity markets like soybean, doesn't that affect you in the short term and affect your ability to provide for your family?
Look, tariffs will probably have a detrimental effect on soybean price in the near future. In the long term, it'll probably work out. I'm a farmer. I deal with bad weather. I deal with dry weather. I deal with torrential rains. We deal with hurricanes. What's a tariff going to do? You know, I got to raise a crop. If I was worried, I'd stay home and not raise a crop. If I was worried about it, I still got to get out there and raise my crop to get the price. If you don't get the yield, it doesn't make any difference. You know, I got to deal with all these other things. What's a tariff? I can't control that, so it is what it is.
What's a tariff? Buddy, it's not a thunderstorm. It doesn't blow over by next season. It's a policy that wiped out your best customer and replaced them with Brazil permanently. You can't just ride that out like a rainy week in July. That's not resilience. That's denial with a side of foreclosure. And this is the heart of FAFO economics. Farmers convincing themselves that loyalty and suffering are the same thing as strategy, but they're not. What's baffling and kind of tragic is watching people accept financial pain as some kind of badge of honor, even when the numbers show it's destroying them. So lesson one, tariffs didn't punish China. They punished American farmers. And in the name of loyalty, a whole industry set itself on fire. And when the flames got too hot, that's when the bailout checks showed up. But surprise, Most of them didn't land where struggling family farmers thought they would.
Dude, the soybean farmers and basically all of Nebraska dairy farmers are going to go bankrupt. The conservative soy boys and the dairy farmers are going bankrupt? What? Why? They hire a lot of undocumented people and they're not coming into work because they're afraid about getting raided and being sent home. Oh man, it's almost like the person that we voted to the office has consequences. We need to help out these farmers and these soy boys. Exactly, we have to bail out the farmers. I guess we can ask South Dakota or Iowa to bail them out. Oh no, they don't have that much money. What about you, California? Do you have money to help bail them out? Let me just write you a check right now from California. Here you go. What is TP? What is this? TP, thoughts and prayers, but you can actually use it as actual TP to wipe your ass. Like, I don't care. I don't want to bail out your red state. Really? Thoughts and prayers? We would never treat California like this. Everybody shits on California all the time. Why can't we on the red states? Like, why don't you guys all figure it out? All the red states have voted for Trump. You guys all pool your money together and like help them out, and we can keep our money here for California. We need to come together as a country and not fight anymore. Yeah, we were trying to do that, and then you elected in the hobgoblin as president. One day there's going to be an earthquake or a wildfire in California, and you're going to be begging for the red states for help. Save that thoughts and prayers. You can give it back to us when that happens, but we'll probably be using our taxpayer money to help out our state.
Donald Trump is preparing to bail out farmers due to his trade policies with China. This is according to the Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins, who made the rounds on these Sunday morning talk shows. Now, she claims that these bailouts are needed because key commodities are plunging, particularly soybean and pork exports to China. No shit, we could have told you this was going to happen. In fact, we did tell you this would happen. She went on to say that this threatens billions of dollars in farm income annually, and that her and Donald Trump are praying that they don't need this bailout, but if they do, they're ready to provide it. But it'll be similar to Trump 1, when it was short-lived and cheap. It was neither short-lived or cheap in that first administration. In fact, it went on for more than 3 years and cost the taxpayers more than $28 billion. Now, if you're thinking, what's the big deal? Farmers provide us food, they should be bailed out. These are the same people who are directly voting against their own basic needs. Of the 444 counties in the United States that derive the majority of their income from agriculture, all but 11 of them voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. They voted for what they're getting right now. These are the same people who push their legislatures to vote against free school lunches and push their legislatures at the national level, congressmen and senators, to vote against student loan bailouts. Meanwhile, they're receiving billions of dollars a year in subsidies and bailouts.
Now here's where the story gets even messier, because after tariffs gutted farm incomes and China stopped buying soybeans, the Trump administration rolled out what they called a bailout for farmers. $28 billion, biggest farm aid package in history. And if you were a struggling MAGA family farmer, that probably sounded like salvation. Like, okay, it hurts right now, but at least help is on the way. Except here's the catch. Most of that money didn't actually go to the small family farms. It went to the giants, the agribusiness behemoths who were already swallowing up the countryside. Let me give you an example. One investigative report found that the top 10% of farms soaked up over half the bailout money. Meanwhile, thousands of small farmers, the very people you see on TikTok crying about tariffs, got checks so small they couldn't even cover the diesel bill for harvest season. And here's the irony that kills me. These same farmers who rail against government handouts were cashing bailout checks just to keep their lights on. Only problem? The bailout wasn't designed for them. It was designed to make sure the big players, the corporate giants, stayed whole. That's FAFO economics in its purest form. You vote for the billionaire president, he gives away billions. But the billions don't trickle down to you. They flow uphill straight into the pockets of corporations that are now buying up the very land your family farm just lost. Here's the bigger picture. This wasn't just a farm story. It's the same playbook we've seen 100 times. Sell people on helping the little guy, then funnel the money to the big guys while the little guy loses the shirt off his back. The lesson is quite simple. The bailout wasn't a rescue plan for farmers. It was a transfer of wealth from rural America to corporate America. And once again, the people who thought they were being saved were the ones footing the bill.
Did you know J.D. Vance and Peter Thiel are in the business of buying up America's farmland? Through his venture firm, Vance invested in something called Acre Trader. It's a platform where wealthy investors can scoop up farmland, often when family farmers are struggling or forced to sell. And here's the kicker. Vance brands himself as a champion of rural America while quietly profiting from the very system that drives small farmers off their land. This isn't about saving farms. It's about turning farmland into Wall Street assets, and Vance is right in the middle of it. So, next time he talks about fighting for the working class, remember, he's also cashing in on their loss.
No one wants to hear Farmer John with his butt crack showing, married to a Karen, complaining about losing your little farm when you voted for me. They don't feel sorry for you, and I don't need your votes anymore, so I don't care. Bigley, Nebraskans, what did you think was gonna happen? If all your workers were Mexicans and we got rid of all the Mexicans, who's gonna be your workers? Guess what? You can take a page from the book of the Native Americans, followed by the African Americans, Chinese Americans, Indian Americans. Listen, what we're gonna do is crash the economy so all the rich people can buy up everything for super dirt cheap, including your land, Nebraska farmer dude. I don't know. And once we buy it for dirt cheap, we will hire you to work on said land. Hello, this is a tale as old as time. We've done it so many times before. And the fact that you thought you were exempt is absolutely hilarious.
In one of my previous videos, I talk about the ICE activity potentially being part of a greater land grab. And lately, it's just seemed more and more like the case, because there are several things that are happening at the same time. It's not just the ICE raids, which, by the way, Texas is a majority Latino state. And it has a lot of people who are undocumented, who've been here for a really long time. I mean, I know you guys have probably heard the whole the border crossed us statement. That's Texas. So that's one point. Another point is the fact that a lot of public lands are being sold right now. And in Texas, a lot of land is being brought up by industry. So in Texas, it's a huge, huge, massive concern that a land grab is in fact happening by industry. And that's not exactly for the people. And that's my worry.
So after the tariffs flopped and the bailout checks went mostly to big ag, what happened to the farmers on the ground? The ones who weren't big enough to get those $1 million checks, but too stubborn to admit they've been played? Bankruptcy. Lots of it. Across the Midwest, farm bankruptcies surged during the trade war years. In states like Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota, hundreds of family farms shut down. Farmers who had kept land in their families for 3, sometimes 4 generations were suddenly signing foreclosure papers. And here's the part that really stings. That land isn't just property, it's generational wealth, it's tradition, it's identity. When a family farm gets sold off, it's not just acres changing hands, it's a way of life disappearing. And who's waiting to scoop it up? Corporate agribusiness and Wall Street investors, the same people who just pocketed the bailout money. Now, to keep the lights on, a lot of these farmers refinanced, took on more loans, piled up more debt, and you don't need an economics degree to see where that road leads. Higher interest, tighter margins, less control. It's a slow motion slide into losing everything. And here's the kicker. Many of them still called this loyalty. They said, we just need to hang on a little longer. It'll pay off. But hanging on didn't save their farms. It just gave the banks more time to bleed them dry. That's FAFO economics, rural edition. You voted for policies that gutted your market, trusted bailouts that never reached you, and now you're drowning in debt while corporations carve up your county. And for those of us watching from the outside, the lesson is clear. When hate and loyalty override math and markets, communities collapse. And once generational wealth is gone, it's gone. You don't get it back with a catchy slogan or a red hat. But here's the kicker. Debt was just the beginning, because while farmers were busy trying to survive one season at a time, the rest of the world wasn't standing still. China didn't just wait politely for America to sort itself out. They moved on. And that's how MAGA farmers didn't just lose a paycheck, they lost their biggest market, maybe forever.
I better get off Fox News and hop your ass over to BBC, because China said Donald Trump is lying. The Minister of Foreign Affairs said that they are not in talks with America over these tariffs. So who is Trump talking to about the tariffs coming down? Because it ain't China, honey. They said they're not playing ball. China has moved on. They have moved their beef and pork imports to Australia, and they have moved their soybean imports over to Brazil. And they're not gonna come back, you guys. On top of that, I just heard from somebody who lives in Indiana, where I'm originally from, and they said they're not getting any steel. So how are they supposed to build homes and cars if they don't have any steel? I think y'all need to get off this Americanized news, because you're not hearing the truth on Fox News and CNN. What's really going on is China ain't talking to them at all. And China hasn't given anything. They haven't dropped anything. They haven't made not one promise to the United States for a drop in these tariffs. Not one. So where are we coming up with these accusations?
China is fully prepared to fight to the very end, because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. Right. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States. And we expect to survive for another 5,000 years.
When you hear Donald Trump say China wants a deal, it just doesn't know how to go about it. They're proud people. J.D. Vance talks about Chinese peasants. What do you make of their conduct in this respect?
If J.D. Vance thinks that he's dealing with the peasants in China, and I'm proud to be a descendant of the peasants, most of us are descendants of the peasants anyway, that's our tradition. We are farmers before. But now we are one of the leading industrialized economies in the world. So I'm sorry, J.D. Vance doesn't know what he's talking about. And therefore, I don't think there will be China-US dialogue unless the United States changes its attitude towards China. Deal with China as it is, show respect to China, show respect to the Chinese people, and don't try to impose your prejudice and biased view about China or about the rest of the world.
He said China has been here for 5,000 years, and they plan on being here for another 5,000 years. And China doesn't look like they're going to want to back down at all. It was even said that President Donald Trump wanted to request a phone call from the president of China, and instead of a phone call, he didn't get none. They ended up coming back with 125% tariffs and vowing to fight until the very end. Do you see any relief from either side? Do you see President Donald Trump backing down? I mean, he's already taken some heat from putting the tariffs that he implemented on pause for 90 days after the markets went the way they did. They seem like they're determined, but it's all that's going to happen. It's going to affect the American people.
Here's the thing about tariffs that a lot of MAGA farmers never wrap their heads around. They thought it was going to be short-term pain for long-term gain. Like, okay, we'll take the hit this season, but once China caves, the market will bounce back. Except that's not how global trade works. When you shut the door on your biggest customer, they don't sit outside waiting for you to open it again. They find another supplier. And in this case, China turned to Brazil and locked in deals that put them at the front of the line for years to come. Let me put it in plain terms. In 2017, the United States was China's top soybean supplier. By 2019, that spot belonged to Brazil. And once those contracts were signed, it didn't matter if America came crawling back with open arms. The market was gone. And this wasn't just a temporary loss. This was structural. Brazil used the trade war to expand production, improve infrastructure, and build long-term relationships with buyers. Meanwhile, U.S. farmers were left with silos full of unsold soybeans and a permanent downgrade in global influence. Now, here's the irony. The whole point of tariffs was to show strength, but what they actually did was weaken America's position in global agriculture. Farmers thought they were playing the long game, but they weren't even on the field anymore. Brazil took their spot and China barely looked back. And that's the hard lesson. Markets don't reward loyalty, they reward reliability. And once you lose that reliability, you lose everything. Tariffs didn't just create short-term pain, they created long-term losses that America may never recover from. That's FAFO economics on a global scale. You thought you were punishing China, but what you really did was hand them the keys to your biggest market, and they gave those keys to Brazil.
Y'all, Trump just said today that the tariffs are doing so well, he thinks they're going to be the money we operate on instead of federal income taxes. He said to begin with, the people making $200,000 or less will be the first ones to go tax-free, baby. Looking forward to that. It just keeps getting better, y'all.
Oh boy. This right here is the MAGA energy in one clip. The man just told you tariffs are basically a replacement for federal taxes, and instead of spitting out your coffee, you're celebrating like it's Christmas morning. Let's break this down. The same tariffs that tanked soybean markets, drove farms into bankruptcy, and handed business to Brazil are now magically going to fund the entire government? It's not economics. That's a bedtime story with a red hat on. And people are eating it up like free samples at Costco. What baffles me is how you can look at silos full of unsold crops, debt up to your eyeballs, and markets gone forever, and still clap like this is the best plan ever. Hate and loyalty really are the most expensive addictions in America, and these farmers are overdosing on both. And this is the grand finale of FAFO economics. You thought tariffs would punish China. Instead, they punished you. You thought bailouts would save you. They saved corporations. You thought loyalty would pay off. It left you broke and laughing at your own downfall. This clip is proof. MAGA will celebrate their own losses as long as it feels like someone else is losing too. That's not strategy. That's self-destruction.
Federal appeals court ruled most of President Trump's tariffs are illegal. The court is saying the president exceeded his authority in imposing those levies. There's a catch, though, in this ruling. Correspondent David Spunt has details tonight, breaking just minutes ago. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening. The catch is that the tariffs can stay in place until October 14th. That's when the mandate from the circuit court, the federal circuit court appeals decision actually kicks in. This was a 127-page decision that just came down within the last 30 minutes. We're reading it, but it finds that most of the president's tariffs are unconstitutional. This was published to the public docket, as I said, within the last few minutes. Now, the panel found that the tariffs on nearly every country were not authorized, Brett, by the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and therefore are illegal.
So the tariffs are illegal, you say? Oh, wow. Shocking. Totally didn't see that coming. But hey, what do I know, right? I'm just the guy with a coffee mug watching this train wreck in 4K. But here's what I do know. Tariffs didn't make America rich. They made farmers broke. They didn't replace taxes. They replaced common sense. And the people cheering the loudest, they're the ones losing the most. That's exactly why we cover these FAFO moments on this channel, because spite doesn't just burn bridges, it burns entire communities. And unless people start learning from this, the same playbook will just keep running on repeat. So if this breakdown gave you a laugh, a new fact, or just made you feel a little less crazy watching it all unfold, go ahead and hit that like button, drop your wildest FAFO story in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm off to refill my coffee and figure out how many soybeans it would take to cover my internet bill in this new tariff-funded utopia. Catch you in the next one.